Welcome to Industry Ignited, the podcast where we spotlight leaders shaping the future of industrial and manufacturing sectors. I'm your host, Dr. Leeanne Aguilar. And today I'm honored to be joined by Marvin Woodie, president of Conweld Industries. For nearly 4 decades, Marvin has been a driving force behind Conweld, starting in the field operations back in 1986 and rising through the ranks to lead the company as president since 2020. Conweld is known globally for custom-engineered vibrating screens and precision parts, all proudly manufactured in the heart of West Virginia. Their philosophy is simple yet powerful: smart engineering for real-world applications. Marvin brings not just deep technical expertise, but also a proven track record in leadership, negotiation, operations management, and team building. Today, we'll dive into his leadership journey, the evolution of Conweld, the company's commitment to sustainability, and his vision for the future of industrial manufacturing. Marvin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Leanne. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for that introduction as well.
You bet. I'm glad to have you. Marvin, you've been with Conweld since 1986. Can you share what first drew you to the company and what's kept you there for almost 40 years?
Well, the patriarch of the company, his name was Jim Conley. He actually recruited me as an intern engineer in 1985, and he was very similar to my father. He didn't have formal education, but he was a brilliant man, both with mechanical aptitude as well as his ability to understand people and understand business. He knew what generated revenue and knew it well. So and that was similar to my father. My father was an entrepreneur as well. So Mr. Conley was the president of the company, and his vision was very important to me, and he laid his vision out early in my career to me, what I could do as well, and be a part of his vision as well. So he was big on having a plan. So I was excited about that.
So you came on board and he took you under his wings, is what I'm hearing, and you were really in alignment with the vision, and so it was really a good fit for moving forward. Now, moving from VP of field operations to president is no small leap. What leadership lessons did you carry forward from the field into the executive office?
Well, I think the customer. This might sound a little cliche, but we're always listening to what our customer requires from us, and being able to be out in the field and watch how our equipment works, watch all the intricacies of how our equipment was applied to the processes, and then listening to what the customer had to say to make our equipment better, bringing that back to Conweld and applying it to new designs, new manufacturing processes to build our equipment to make it better. I think that allowed me to relate to our people over a long period of time and convey what was important to generate more revenue. And that helped me become, have more of a mind of a leader along the way, to understand working with people was critical and listening to what they had to say was critical. And then applying that to my leadership role here.
Right. Yeah. So just understanding the company and the processes and the people from the inside out is what I'm hearing. Really getting to know the company and the needs of everyone involved.
Mm-hmm.
So, as an engineer by training, how has your technical background influenced your approach to managing people and strategy?
Yeah, that's a great question. I remember my freshman year in engineering at West Virginia University. The first thing they taught us, I didn't know what specific engineer I wanted to be, what discipline in engineering. There's quite a few: mechanical, electrical, industrial, mining, chemical, and a lot more types of engineers, aerospace. And I was not certain what each one of those disciplines were, the details of those. But once I decided to move into mechanical engineering, I remember some of the fundamental classes they had there, and they taught us the 10 steps to decision making. That was the very first thing, one of the first classes I took at West Virginia University, and that procedure has helped me throughout my career. I'll never forget the very first one is, identify the problem. The very first thing that we were taught was to identify exactly what the problem is before you start trying to work on a solution to the problem. Because if you don't really know what the problem is, you you waste a lot of time. And so, time's the most valuable thing we have. And I remember that was one thing that they taught us, and really allowed us to evaluate. It allowed me, and in the process of getting my education, and then also taking my education into the field, it allowed me to evaluate situations from that perspective, as well as a lot of other things that I learned in engineering, that allowed me to evaluate any situation, whether it's financial or an engineering issue or a manufacturing issue. I think we look at it differently, having that background in education.
Yeah. And I think that's great insight. I've heard that as well. Like identifying the problem is half the battle. So once
Mhm.
you get your arms wrapped around that problem, you can really understand and identify a solution.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
So Conweld is known for smart engineering for real world applications. I believe that's your tagline.
Yes.
How do you define smart engineering in practice? What does that look like?
Mm, that's a great question too. And well, smart engineering is. I talk to our engineers on a regular basis in our engineering department. We have meetings quite often. One example is taking an engineering design and taking it through the manufacturing processes correctly. Once you have the design completed, it might not be something that could be manufactured easily. And the engineer has to understand not only the design aspects of a part or a product line, they have to understand the manufacturing aspects of that same part. If we can't build it, the design's no good. So, practical application, practical manufacturing related to the design is critical. One of the things that Mr. Conley taught me early on is that you will know how to machine parts, you'll know how to fabricate parts, you'll know how to generate weldments. You'll work on the shop floor. You'll run machine tools, and I was pretty frustrated, I guess, is the best thing to say. When I first started working, he had me working out in the shop. I wasn't really doing a lot of engineering design work, but I was doing practical work in our manufacturing, and it helped me immensely to take the engineering knowledge I learned and apply it correctly to manufacturing.
Yeah, yeah. So it's just a process, and I guess the experience probably helps a great deal too. Having that experience and experienced team, and going back to the problem identification and solutions there for the smart engineering. It's just taking that knowledge and applying it in ways that solve those problems.
Yeah.
Now, vibrating screens and separation equipment may sound niche to some listeners, but they're essential to industries from mining to recycling. Can you give an example of how Conn-Weld's technology directly impacts efficiency in these sectors?
Well, in mining, all material that's mined has to be concentrated in some regards. The in particular, if you take coal for example, coal when it's mined, in many cases, sometimes it's shipped naturally raw, but in most cases it has to be concentrated. You have to remove the impurities from the coal, or gold, or phosphate, or copper, or any material that's mined has to have a specification when it's introduced into its final stages of a product. So to any industry. So what our product does is it allows these minerals to be concentrated correctly by sizing it, and in dense media separation, where you float a material and sink another material. The material you sink may be the product, or the material you float may be the product. Our screens are used to separate that once it's been concentrated, and also to size material before it's concentrated, to make sure that each size of a particle goes to a certain process to be concentrated correctly. So it's important for our equipment to be a part of those aspects of sizing minerals. Food, for example, we do a lot of food processing where we take starch from corn and do that separation process, which is a 50 micron process, separation process. And it takes some intricate screening to do that. 50 micron is 2/1000 of an inch. And
Oh,
so we pressure feed material onto our screens and it does a separation at that small size fraction. So many things in daily use have to be screened and concentrated before they can be used. So our equipment, our products are used in that regard.
And how do you balance customization for clients with maintaining operational efficiency in your manufacturing process?
That's another great question. One of the first things we like to know is how many of these units, if it's a new unit in a process, how many of these units can we sell and where can we sell these and introduce them into a marketplace? When we're working on new designs, we're working on a new design for recycling concrete right now. And, we did sort of a market analysis before we got into the details of the design of this particular machine. It has to be safe, first and foremost. It has to be have the ability to be manufactured efficiently and cost effectively. So we look at all those things. How do we apply our design to a product that can be manufactured and be safe? And so we're applying those philosophies to this new crusher for recycled concrete. There's a large need for that right now in the industry, and a more efficient way to do that, to remove metal from concrete cleanly and efficiently, and have a separation that the metal goes to recycling and the concrete goes to recycling as it's reused in base material for roads. It's reused in concrete. It's reused in other applications. So it's it's a recycled, environmentally friendly product once you get it crushed and the metal removed from it as well.
So
So
I'm
that's just one
hearing,
example of going
yeah, it
from.
sounds like there's an innovation involved in there too. I mean, to what
Yes.
extent do you have to be innovative as engineers when creating new screens and new or products for these different products?
Yes, every day. Technology changes exponentially with time. And it's, I know we hear this all the time. One example is AI, artificial intelligence right now. Every manufacturer is trying to examine, or should be trying to examine, how they're going to apply artificial intelligence to their processes. And it's an interesting goal and objective. Artificial intelligence is a little more than just Chat GPT or some of these other Copilot or some of these other functional softwares to generate words and information. Reasoning is to be able to reason through a process or an application to make decisions, correct decisions. That's the true underlying foundation of artificial intelligence. So I use that just as an example. That technology is moving very rapidly. Now, how does a manufacturer, small to mid-sized manufacturer like ourselves, apply that economically to all our systems? All software that relates to manufacturing, whether it's CAD, CAM, ERP systems, CRM systems, whatever they may be, it's nice to be able to apply those, but they're expensive, and the business model has to sustain the expense of introducing technology continuously, and it's becoming very difficult to do that, because I think a lot of software companies that bring in this new technology to manufacturing, let's say, or to the world in a lot of applications and not just manufacturing, the cost has to be weighed. And I think we're seeing right now where it's very expensive to bring in the latest and greatest technology and be able to afford it through manufacturing processes. And we examine that every day here, trying to enhance.
Yeah, and I'm curious about that. So, I mean, one, have you found ways to integrate AI into your processes, or making either on the manufacturing side or in the engineering side, in making your processes more efficient, or innovation more, you know, innovative, I guess,
Yeah.
for one. Have you found ways? And for two, I know there are upfront costs, but at what point is that absorbed into the cost savings that you would realize with implementing AI?
That's another great question. We haven't implemented AI yet. I mean, some people individually here have, they use it, to assist in coming up with ideas or designs, for marketing. But in engineering, we have not applied it. If we have to present a project, or if we have to do some technical writing, we've used it, but not to design our product. And there's a reason for that too. AI is not to the point where in my opinion, it may be, but it's very expensive. It's not to the point where we can build a piece of equipment and think and know that it's safe. For an example, if we don't know the data is good and AI generates a piece on our equipment that is not designed correctly, and then we introduce that into that piece of equipment and it fails. And there could be a lot of ramifications to that, not just mechanical but personal, and a lot of a thought process have to go into using AI to make sure it's correct before you introduce it to the marketplace. With the human aspect of design, we know what we definitively know what works when we design it, because we make sure through our calculations of, let's say, a hydraulic cylinder on a piece of equipment. If a hydraulic cylinder failed and it was lifting up a piece of material and it dropped on somebody and hurt somebody, well, through an engineer, with our designs, we would make certain that doesn't happen, even though it could, but now with AI, if we take for granted that AI designed a cylinder, hydraulic cylinder, to lift the same piece of material, is it right? Do you know it's right? Do you accept that it's right, with a lot of liability on the line? And then the profitability, the practical side of it, can it be efficient when we manufacture whatever AI comes up with? Will it be, of course, profitable if we introduce whatever AI tells us to do to design a piece of equipment? Back in the 80s and 90s, when CAD, computer aided design, was first introduced to engineering design work, really early 80s, mid 80s, everybody was trying to make sure that when we generated a drawing that on CAD on a computer, that all the information that we were generating was correct.
Yeah.
Not and going from the board into CAD or CAM, computer aided manufacturing, we had to make sure all that information we were using to put in our drawings was correct. And most of the time, manufacturing caught us if we designed it incorrectly in engineering, and they caught
Yeah.
us quickly. So those are just a couple of examples. Technology is changing so rapidly. We use ERP systems here to drive our entire manufacturing process,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not easy to introduce ERP to your entire workforce and have them integrate it correctly into our manufacturing processes, and then back to our accounting process to make sure we're as efficient as we can be. It's all it moves
Right.
very rapidly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So I'm hearing you're open to it, you're exploring it, but at this point, it's not to where you would trust it because of the liability and because of not knowing if it's accurate or not. And I mean, I know, yeah, AI, one of the problems with it is it does create the hallucinations, and it is drawing from a bank of information that might not all be correct. And
that's
so,
correct.
yeah, yeah. But having the technology available and using it as it makes sense and being open to it is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Yeah. So Conweld has a strong commitment to sustainability, from recycling programs to sourcing from American vendors. Why is this important to the company and you personally?
Um, you know, as far as sustainability goes, we want to make sure that we have a purpose, I guess, more than just selling equipment to the industry. We've always talked about in search of excellence here since. I mean, when I first started here, it was our objective and our goals. Not just to. I mean, we are one small thing about sustainability here. We put in a recycling program here at the facility where we can recycle all our plastics and recycle all of our metals. We use a lot of stainless steel, and we keep that stainless steel, any of the scrap that we have, and we recycle that. We recycle any of the carbon steel that we have. So all of our metals, all of our paper, all of our plastics, all that's recycled. And we don't have to do those things, to be to manufacture our product, but we think it's a responsible way to manufacture. And there's a lot of other things we do here in the community as well to assist with sustaining certain aspects of our environment and as well as our production facility.
Great. And your mission and values emphasize respect, integrity, and partnership. How do you instill those values across a workforce that spans different functions, from engineers to field technicians?
Yes, and manufacturers and accountants and inside sales and outside sales.
Yeah,
Yes,
whole
that's
variety yeah.
that's a very variety of people in all different positions here at our company. Yes, how do you instill the proper mindset, the proper respect for business and others, and how they do that? That's culture, and driving culture is something we do every single day here. Make the right decision about how you're interacting with our most important part of our business, and that's our customers. Always treat our customers with respect and with their ideals with respect, while introducing them to ideals that we may have. There's a couple of customers that we work with that emphasize that on a daily basis. They're great companies, they're great. Well, there's quite a few of them, not just a couple, and we enjoy working with those companies that have that culture. And so we try to work with our people on a regular basis, daily basis, to make the correct decisions if they have any concerns about how they should be conducting themselves throughout our facility. And we sit down and have discussions with them, with our human resources people. We have a great group of human resource people that talk to them about, a myriad of things outside of work, both personal and professional. And it's amazing what I found. If you talk to people, if you genuinely talk to people on a regular basis, all of our people, I go out in our facility on a regular basis. I've been to see our customers this week, our major customers, and discuss things with them one-on-one, face-to-face. This is nice, what we're doing here today, but I honestly believe face-to-face is in-person handshakes. You pick up on more personal aspects of the emotional side of business, the cultural side of business that you don't get, electronically, I'll say.
Right.
Through emails, through chats, through, meetings like this right here. These are good. Don't get me wrong, but I'll give you an example. When you go out to a plant, I'm in Southern West Virginia right here. And, we have a unique workforce. They're fantastic people, very hardworking people. But they have challenges. And, one of the challenges we have in our area is, a drug epidemic and how it's affected families in this area. And we're right on the border of West Virginia and Virginia. Kentucky's not far away from us. And the drug culture has wreaked havoc on our communities. And we have a lot of young people that don't know the fundamentals of working. They don't know the fundamentals of what it takes to get up, be at a job every day, on time, come to work, do their job correctly, and then how they handle that with all things outside of their work. So, we try to assist not only our employees, but people in our area, young people. We go to schools, elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, Votex centers and also colleges and universities in our area. And we have a person that we've hired full time to lead this. She was a teacher at Giles County, Virginia, that worked for 30 some years in the school system. And we hired that person to go out and share with our young people and people, not just young people, what they can do with their life through working at Conweld, or if they have the skills to work at Conweld, they can work wherever they want. And we
Yeah.
instill that culture in our manufacturing, and we instill that culture in each person that's here, to say, hey, you can do better, and
Yeah.
we want you to do better. We want you to reason and think about what you want to be in the future, and let's work to get you to those goals, whatever those may be. Like, we start a lot of people out in assembly here in our facility, and then we make machinists out of them and welders out of those people, and even engineers. We have
Hmm.
programs here. We work closely with local universities that have engineering programs, and we'll let our these a lot of our people will work and go to school to better themselves, and it's a beautiful culture for us and for our employees.
Yeah. So I hear, right, culture is what is really, or not only developing that culture, but instilling it in the community as well, taking it and educating the community, communicating what opportunities they have with Conweld and how they can grow personally and professionally, what opportunities there are for, you know, if they choose to work with you. And I mean, I can see that. I mean, I see that in industry in general. Developing that culture starts from within. It's really understanding who you are first and developing like programs then and communication systems within your company, and then communicating it to the external world, but knowing who you are first and really establishing those mission, vision, values, and then implementing it, in different ways. So, do you have a program internally that, when it comes to training, for example, that trains your new hires on that culture?
Yes, we do. A lot of people call it onboarding. We like to call it, getting to know people.
Yeah.
You can have fancy programs with fancy names, but in reality, who are you as a person, and how will you fit well with our company and our culture? I'll give you an example. Had a young man, 19 years old, two kids. This is a shining example. Didn't have parental support in any way. And he came running through the shop one day and he said, I can't do math. I can't do math. And I need to talk to you. And he pointed at me and he said, I don't want to get fired. They're calling me excuse me for the term, but they're calling me a dumbass out here because I can't do math. And he was running a piece of machinery that was a punch and a shear,
Uh-huh.
and he had to size the dies for the punch and the shear. The punch was a certain size, say a half inch, and the dies have to be a percentage over the half-inch diameter of the punch that goes in the middle. And you have to calculate that to put the right tooling in the machine to operate the machine correctly. And he couldn't calculate the die size to go with the punch, and he was very frustrated. And he was worried he was going to lose his job. He said, I've got two kids. I can't lose my job. And he gives me his phone. He shows me a picture of his two children. And I said, Michael, I said, you're not going to lose your job first and foremost, and you're not dumb. I said, we're going to help you understand how to do math so you can operate this piece of equipment, or we can put you on another piece of equipment and things like that. And, I asked him, had anybody showed him how to use a tape measure? Had anybody showed him how to use, simple math to do the calculations? And he said no. And now this guy had graduated from high school.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just saying these things, and I'm not condemning our education system when I say this. I'm just saying this is a fact of what manufacturers have to face today when they're hiring people here in our area specifically. And I know this isn't just here; this is universal in a lot of places in our country and in the world. I've traveled all over the world and seen a lot of things. But what we did is we took that young man and I even helped, show him, took the time to show him how to read a scale, how to read a tape measure correctly, and then use that to teach him fractions and decimal equivalents so he could calculate the percentage of oversized dies to go with the punches for a 1/4 inch piece of plate, a 3/8 piece of plate, 1/2 inch, and all these things. And I asked him, I said, Michael, I said, if we gave you the material to build a box, a wooden box, and I said, if you took that material home and gave you the nails and showed you a dimension, I drew a little sketch of a box. And I said, you take that home and you build that for me using your tape measure, these nails, and this hammer and a saw. And I said, do that, and I'm going to give you a week to do that. Well, he went home and he had it done the next day. He was after we had talked and we discussed how to read a scale, how to read a tape measure, how to look at a print and evaluate a print, not only in 2 dimensions, but in 3 dimensions. It was a simple sketch, but that was all in there.
Yeah.
And so we take the time to do that with our employees, not just myself, but, we have people that do that as well to train on a regular basis. Not just, safety is a big aspect, but, from a manufacturing standpoint and from a life skills standpoint. And Michael's been with us now for, 4 or 5 years, and he's a challenge sometimes, but he's always willing to learn and willing to work. So that's just one. We have 302 employees that any of them would have the ability to go through training of any type that they needed
Yeah.
to make themselves better. And we do a lot of training in engineering. We do a lot of training, and we send people out for seminars through marketing. We do a lot of training there, and in manufacturing as well, machining and welding. We train on a regular basis. To try, 2 things come from that. One is to try and educate our employees, but also to keep them in our culture and keep them here employed at Conweld Legacy. We want to keep our people, here, and we have a lot. We've got grandparents and parents and children and grandchildren working here through generations, and we like that, and
Yeah.
we feel like we're doing something correctly when we have legacy employees here.
Well, and I'm sure it means a ton to the employee, and it goes a long way to know that you will invest in them, and maybe they don't know everything, which might be, frustrating, or they might feel embarrassed even to admit, sometimes they don't know something, but it's taking the time to help develop them and just have faith that they can improve. I bet that does go a long way in creating a positive culture and creating that trust and loyalty with the employees as well.
Well, you said that key word, trust. That's in every aspect of what we do every single day. And I don't care what you do in your life, when people trust, what you're saying, your words, your actions, that's a breakthrough. And when your customers trust that you're going to complete a task for them correctly, because they're going to give you their hard-earned money
Yeah.
to do that. One of the things my dad always said, he was an entrepreneur's entrepreneur, and he had a 12th grade education. He wasn't formally educated in any way, but he was very smart, just like the man who founded Conweld. He had a 12th grade education. He was very smart. And I learned a lot from my dad. My dad always said one thing, he said, you look at business, and he said, look at all these retail businesses, and they make people wait to give their money to you. And that's the worst thing anybody could do, is have a line at the cash register. And I'll never forget that. You're in
Yeah.
business to make money fundamentally. However, you have to make people feel like they're important enough that when they are going to give you their money, that there's no wait, there's no delay. It's like, okay, let's get you through here. Thank you for buying from us. A simple thing like no lines at the cash registers. And we'd walk into these big box stores, and my dad just couldn't stand standing in line to give
Right.
somebody money. And it's a fundamental part of business. But he was right. He was right about that. And I'll never forget that. It's an emotional thing as much as it is a business transaction. So,
Yeah. And also, I mean, turning that around, like serving your customers, comes from being able to, or I mean, it comes from the culture as well, right? So if you
correct.
care about your employees, if you train your employees, if you invest in your employees, then that care and emotion transfers on to your customer as well. They feel that they're taken care of because of the employees who care.
That's correct. All businesses make mistakes. All businesses produce a product that will have a problem. Something will be wrong. It might be a dress that was shipped to a customer that was the wrong color off of Amazon or whatever. Somebody wanted to buy a blue dress and they were shipped a red dress. Now, how you handle that mistake, how a company handles it, and makes a person feel. And that's the
Yes.
emotional aspect of business. That's, how you handle it and how you feel. And that, everybody talks about, well, feelings don't matter and all this. Well, it's not just that. It's the thought process. It's that guttural aspect of business that if Amazon, you call or text, email, however you communicate with Amazon, and you say, hey, I got a blue dress and I want a red dress, and they immediately say, send it back. Well, we've got one in the mail to you. You're going to buy from Amazon again. And that's a beautiful thing. And it transcends price and delivery.
Right.
And again, it's culture and how your business operates.
Yeah. And the care.
Because the only way you could ever recover from a mistake like that is to continue to do business with the customer that you made a mistake with. That's the only way you can recover from that. If you quit doing business with those people, you never recover that loss. So there's a
Right.
practical side of it as well.
And it damages reputation as well because people talk to each other and the word gets out. And most businesses, especially one with a legacy like Conweld, you have a long history. So reputation is going to precede you. And so not taking the time to care and correct the mistakes or to treat, to address things can hurt the reputation of the company as well.
100%. Saying that, it's our 50th anniversary this year of being in business since 1975. And
Wow.
we're going to have a big celebration this fall, October 16th. You're more than welcome to come. We're having,
Congratulations. That's awesome. Yeah.
yeah, our keynote speaker is going to be Homer Hickam, the gentleman that wrote Rocket Boys. And there was a movie about it as well. And he's from our local area in Southern West Virginia. He was worked for NASA. And, he's a great guy. And we've got customers and friends coming in and local dignitaries coming from the state and from our county, and we're very happy to celebrate that.
That's wonderful. Congratulations. That's very
Thank
exciting.
you.
Yeah. And looking ahead, what trends in manufacturing or industrial engineering excite you most right now?
Artificial intelligence. It's exciting for me. I worked on artificial intelligence in 1983 at college. I took a couple electives, robotics and microprocessors, and some other electives that introduced us to artificial intelligence and voice recognition back in the day, analog to digital conversion, digital to analog conversion, and then trying to understand words
Yes.
and using artificial intelligence to try to recognize that. Artificial intelligence has been around for a long time. The military used it. First people to use it, of course, strategic battle plans and things like that, how to make best decisions. That was in the 60s, I believe, if I'm correct. But anyway, so the future is, more help from technology and AI's artificial intelligence. It's funny. My brother and we both worked on a ranch and farm in Kansas, and when we said AI back in the 80s, we meant artificial insemination,
Right.
which is a little different than
A little bit
artificial
different.
intelligence. But that is going to drive all things the world, not just manufacturing, but finance, daily life, living. AI will be a part of everything that we do, as I see it now. Just as when the internet became usable and active in the 90s, we're going to see that same trend even bigger with AI, and that's the next big step. So,
Yeah, yeah, hospitality. I mean, booking things. I mean, planning
mhm.
vacations. All kinds of things. Yeah, AI is everywhere, and it won't go away, right? So it's just
That's correct.
embracing it and figuring out how to work with it and what opportunities there are. And I mean, just like any industrial revolution, some jobs go away, but others come about. So it's just
Hmm.
a change, a transition. So, in
Right.
addition to AI and technology, what is your vision for ensuring the company continues to thrive for the next 50 years?
Finding people to replace myself and every other person here at Conweld. you know, uh, Training people, having people trust us, having employees and customers trust us enough that we can continuously hire people to replace our best people and continue what we do, because it's all about that. You can have the best equipment, you can have the best facility, you can have really good designs, great technology inside your facility, inside your company. And unless you have the people to drive that, and I don't care how good AI is,
Yeah, right.
there's still the personal side of, again, I'm a strong believer in shaking somebody's hand, looking them in the eye, and discussing things personally. That's a tremendous aspect of, of doing business, interrelational opportunities. I've got great friends around the world, but I've seen some amazing things. I've been a blessed man to have traveled and been influenced by a lot of great thinkers. And I always say this: in the United States, we think we have the way a lot of times, but what I've seen traveling, we have a way of doing
Yeah,
things, and I don't care
right.
what that is. If it's your dress, the food you eat, how you interact with your family, how you manufacture something. We have to, here at Conweld, we're a global company, so we always have to be looking for the next person that'll make Conweld better, to replace Marvin Woodie, we replace all of our vice president of engineering, our vice president of coal, our vice president of aggregates, all the way down through all of our welders and manufacturing people, all the people here that are very important. Every person is important to make us successful. So we always have to be looking for the next person to replace each person we have, and not feel threatened by that.
Yeah,
A lot of people guard their job so closely. They don't share their information. They're so afraid. They're job scared. And that's a horrible condition to have an employee in.
hmm
They're not sharing what they do every day with everybody around them to make everybody around them better. And
right.
if your culture doesn't support that, if your culture says if you don't get this done, you're fired, that's not the right culture. You're not managing correctly when you have that culture.
Yeah,
So you still have to work. You still have to be productive. Productivity is a key to manufacturing, but you have to do it in a way that supports your people, not chastises your people.
right. Yeah, and I agree with you though. I mean that in person interaction is. I mean, you get so much more than just a virtual connection or an email, and I know it's convenient. This podcast today, it's super convenient. I do connect with business, owners
Yes.
and leaders all over the world, which is super interesting because I can get so much more insight. Like you said, we have one way, but you can, other people in other parts of the world have other insights. So it's awesome that it's convenient, and but you do miss a lot of the everything else that comes along with the in-person communication, right? Getting to know somebody at a deeper level, and their personality just comes out in a whole different way, getting to know somebody in person.
Yeah, I've got my example of that. One great example. I've met a lot of fantastic people throughout my career, but this was early on, and I was still going to school, and I was working on a farm and ranch in Kansas. I was cowboying. I mean, I'm from West Virginia, and how all that happened is too long for us for this podcast. But I got a job out in southwestern Kansas, just south of Garden City, Kansas, on a 5,000 acre cattle ranch and farm, and we had 900 head of cattle, wheat, corn, alfalfa, milo, and all different types of crops as well. It was all irrigated. And my job out there when I first got there, that first year I worked there, was to help build a three-story log home that the gentleman who owned the property was building. And there was a carpenter there, and his name was Tim Rowden. And I'll never forget this guy as long as he taught me so much about how to be, you know, considerate of who you are as a carpenter, as an engineer, whatever your profession might be. You have to consider how good you want to be, and you make a decision every day how you're going to treat that, your profession, and how people are going to see you professionally. And we would build forms to pour concrete walls for the basement, and he wanted his forms to be diagonally on, within a 32nd of an inch, and the size of this basement was a pretty good sized basement. That was very difficult to do. And I'll never forget trying to square those forms diagonally. And, he looked at me and I said, man, I said, isn't this close enough? And he goes, I know it's wrong. And I learned from that. He goes, I will come to this house and look at it the rest of my life and drive by it and see it and all these things. But if this basement's not right, the foundation's not right, and the rest of the house isn't right, I'll know it's wrong. And I'll never, ever forget that.
Yeah.
And the other thing he told me, I hated country music. And he listened to old school AM radio back, this is the 80s again, and he loved country music. And he said, you don't like this music very much, do you? And I was a big rock fan, and all that. Played guitar. He played guitar. We had that in common. And he said, son, he said, if you don't like country music, you just haven't lived long enough. And I love country music now.
There you go.
Anyway,
he wasn't wrong then.
but
Yeah.
that I would have never got that. I would have never got that on a Zoom call. I would have never got that, through even a mail, back in the day, stamp old school mail. I would have never got that unless I met that man,
Yeah.
shook his hand, and worked with him.
Right. Right. Because it's like you can know something or get something on like a, mental level, but then there's that visceral level that you can, working with somebody or experiencing something, firsthand, which is completely different than just talking about it or seeing something.
It's spiritual.
Yeah.
I'm not, it is. It's an emotional, spiritual connection that you get with other people, whatever
Right.
it is.
Absolutely.
And technology can't bring that. And
No.
you can have the best technology in the world, and I haven't seen it. I don't know. It may get to the point it can bring that, and they're trying to do all that, but no.
Yeah. I get that. Yeah. So finally, Marvin, as you reflect on your career, what do you hope your leadership legacy will be, both for Conweld and for the broader industry?
That's another great question. And again, I don't want to be cliche. It's not. I always say it's not about me. I've got to the point in my career where I want to see other people succeed, and I don't care what that is. And I ask people all the time. I say, what do you think will make you better as an individual or a person? And I learn from that. I don't ask that question just to get a feedback from them, but I learn from them when they tell me that. All right, when they say whatever it is they tell me about making themselves better, all right, how can I help them be better? And I just hope that, I've helped somebody get better at whatever they wanted to get better, whether it's, fishing, kayaking, running a machine tool, welding, a process in an application in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, where they're separating starch from corn, like I mentioned, something that people said, that guy, he really was genuinely concerned about making us better, making people around him better. So that, for me, that's my joy in life. Actually, I'm living that right now. Actually, and I don't say that to brag. I say that very humbly because it's hard, to do some of these things and affect people in a positive way all the time, because the world doesn't agree with Marvin Woodie every day, and I don't agree with the world.
Yeah.
But I'll still go help that world, whatever it is, get through whatever they need to get through from a personal standpoint.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Yeah, no worries.
And Marvin, your story has been inspiring, and thank you so much for sharing your insights. And how can people get a hold of you and learn more about Conweld Industries?
Yeah, thank you very much, Leanne. Thank you for inviting me to do this. I've got a call here at 10:30, but yeah, if you want to get a hold of Conn-Weld, go to our website. It's the easiest way. Conn-Weld.com at CONN-WELD.com, or you'll get all the information you need, our email addresses, our phone numbers, and you can get a hold of me that way. So that's the fastest way through that means. And we, Facebook page, we have that as well. LinkedIn page, we have that as well. So all those platforms will get you to our company and to me specifically.
Excellent. Well, I won't hold you up, Marvin. Thank you so much. And for our listeners, don't forget to subscribe and share this episode. Stay tuned for more conversations. And until next time, stay bold, stay curious, and keep igniting industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.